At some point far in the future, your heart is going to stop. For most of history, that moment was considered the end instantly, the exact second consciousness switched off like a light. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain may not shut down all at once. In its final seconds, it might do something almost nobody expected. You'd assume a brain starved of oxygen would fade out fast. For decades, that was simply assumed, mostly because nobody had a reliable way to check. The instant your heart stops, blood stops flowing to the brain, and oxygen begins running out within seconds. Clinically, this is often when death is declared, but researcher Sam Parnia, who leads resuscitation research at NYU Langone, has spent years arguing that dead might not mean what you think, at least not immediately. Parnia led a study called AWARE, examining patients who suffered cardiac arrest, technically died by every clinical measure, and were later revived. His team hid visual targets near the ceilings of hospital rooms, testing whether some patients could later describe things seen from outside their own body during that window. A striking number of survivors described some form of awareness during the period their brain should have already gone dark. Doesn't that break the simple story? Something appeared to still be happening in there. The deeper answer came from an unexpected place: research on dying rats. In 2013, neuroscientist Jim O'Borgigan at the University of Michigan monitored rats' brains after cardiac arrest. Instead of a steady fade into silence, she found a massive, coordinated surge of high-frequency gamma wave activity, the same pattern linked to intense, focused conscious awareness in a fully alert mind. This surge hit within 30 seconds of the heart stopping. Borgigan later found something similar in dying human patients, using EEG data from hospice patients monitored in their final hours. In several cases, a comparable spike in coordinated brain activity appeared right around death, activity that looked like a highly conscious state, not a brain quietly powering down. Think about what that means. A dying brain starved of fuel may not fade out gently. In its final seconds, it might do the opposite. One last intense burst of coordinated activity right as everything ends. Why would a dying brain do that? One theory centers on the brain losing its ability to filter information as its systems fail. Normally, your brain filters an enormous amount of input just to let you function. As oxygen runs out, that filtering may collapse all at once, producing a brief, vivid, unfiltered flood of memories and sensations firing with unusual intensity. This might explain something people have reported for centuries: vivid, intensely realistic experiences described by those who survived cardiac arrest or came close to dying. Flashes of memory, a strange calm, sometimes even euphoria, arriving in what should be the most terrifying moment of a life. Researcher Raymond Moody popularized the term near-death experience in the 1970s after collecting hundreds of such accounts. For decades, these reports were treated as unexplainable. The gamma wave research offers a possible physical mechanism, a measurable burst of activity happening at exactly the moment these experiences are described. Here's the part that reframes everything. If this surge is real, the final seconds of consciousness may not resemble a slow fade to black. They may resemble the brain's most intensely active moment, a final flood of coordinated activity right before the lights go out. This window doesn't last. Without restored blood flow, the surge collapses within a minute or two, and the deeper, permanent process of cellular death begins. This isn't evidence of consciousness continuing forever. It's evidence that the boundary between life and death in terms of brain activity may be far less like flipping a switch than science assumed for most of the last century. You've probably imagined your own final moment as quiet, awareness gently draining away like a battery running out. The evidence emerging now suggests something closer to the opposite, not a fade, a flare. One last, intensely coordinated burst of activity from a brain doing everything it can right up until the end. So the next time you think about that final moment, far away, hopefully, in your future, consider this. The end of consciousness may not be silence creeping in slowly. It might be the loudest, most vivid moment your brain ever produces. A final surge, not a fade. Arriving right as everything else goes still.